All right, we are going to be looking at concept 4A. This concept is about angles and their measures. Our objective is to name angles and classify angles by their measure. So to start off here, we have some vocabulary to look at. First definition is an angle. An angle definition is, whoops. Oh my goodness. Two different rays with the same endpoint. Okay, so we all know kind of what an angle would look like, something like this. And we always want to put, we always want to put those arrows on the ends, representing that our angle goes on forever in those directions. And we always have 3 points on our angle. And that is where I'm drawing these. I'm going to name them just A, B, C for the sake of simplicity. So the definition, going back to that, is two different rays with the same endpoint. We have ray BA, and we also have ray BC. Both of these rays have endpoint of B, and they form an angle. Next vocabulary word is sides of an angle. This is pretty straightforward. The sides of an angle are rays. So like we said before, in our example up here, we have ray BA and ray BC as our sides. And then the vertex of an angle is the shared endpoint between those two rays. So in this case, it would be B would be our shared endpoint, because both ray BA and ray BC have B as an endpoint. Okay, all right, if we go down to this example, it's asking us to name 3 different angles in the diagram. So if we look at the diagram here, let me do different colors here. We'll start with orange. So the first angle that I can clearly see is the biggest angle here, the one outlined in yellow now. So whenever we name an angle, we must use those 3 letters that are on the angle. So in this case, we have W, the endpoint, the vertex is X, and then we have Z. So that would be our first angle, which is this the biggest angle in this diagram. So we would name that as angle W, X, Z. Okay, let's switch colors. Another angle that I see is a smaller angle here. Oops. And I have 3 points again. I have W, I have the vertex X, and I have Y. So if I name that angle, I have angle WXY. And we need one more, so I'm going to take the other smaller angle on the other side. So I have Y, X, and Z for this angle. So Y, X is still our vertex, and Z. So angle Y, X, Z. And those are our three angles. So we have that big one, orange one, we have that littler green one, and this smaller blue one. All right, a measure of an angle. You should always have this in degrees. So if you're finding the measure of an angle, it will be in degrees. For example, it could be like 90 degrees. As a right angle, it could be 45 degrees. It could be 180 degrees. That is what it's talking about when it's asking you a measure of an angle. Whenever we want to represent a measure of an angle or we need a notation, we use a lowercase m with the angle notation, and then we use our three letters that are on our angle. So in this case, I'll just put ABC. But that is how we would say measure of angle ABC, and then you would say equals whatever, however many degrees the angle is. Okay, protractor postulate. Some of you may have used a protractor before, but it's a tool that you use to measure an angle. The protractor postulate is the measure is equal to the absolute value of the difference between the real numbers matched with the two sides. Okay, so for example, let's look at if we have let me highlight this, AOB, we would see that the A is here on the 40 and B is all the way at 180. So we would find the difference between 40 and 180, and we would know that that is 140 degrees. So the angle, measure of angle AOB is 140 degrees. So that's an example of the protractor postulate. Okay, let's talk about some types of angles. We have four types here. We have, the first one is an acute angle. This is an angle between 0 degrees and 90 degrees. Notice the word between. So it must be less than 90 degrees and greater than 0 degrees. So 1 to 89 degrees. I remember this because the name acute, I think of it as like a cute little angle. So it's the smallest type of angle that we have. Okay, the next type of angle we have is a right angle. Hopefully you've heard of this term before, but it is an angle that is 90 degrees. Okay, so not 91 degrees, not 89 degrees, exactly 90 degrees is a right angle. An obtuse angle is an angle between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. Again, notice the word between here. So 90 degrees would be considered a right angle. So 91 degrees is an obtuse. So it has to be between 90 and 180. And our last one here is a straight angle. A straight angle is an angle that is 180 degrees, okay? And notice the word straight angle in this vocabulary word. If you have a line that is 180 degrees, it's going to be a straight line, okay? So, for example, if we looked up this protractor, this red line that goes along the bottom of the protractor, that would be considered a straight angle because it is exactly straight, meaning it is 180 degrees. So those are our four types of angles. Go ahead and flip to the next page. We have a couple more in concept 4A. Okay, this question is asking us which angle in the diagram is a right angle. So remember, a right angle must be 90 degrees. A good notation to tell us that it is 90 degrees is this box that we see here. Anytime you see that box, you can assume that the angle that's labeled with that box is a 90-degree angle. So the angle that has the box on it is PQS, where Q is our vertex, and Q and QS would be our sides of our angle. So we're going to say that angle PQS, that is our right angle. So we could even say that the measure of PQS is equal to 90 degrees. Remember that box, you will see that sometimes on Math Excel if they want you to assume that an angle is right. Okay. Last one, they want us to use the diagram to find the measure of the indicated angle, then classify the angle. Okay, so for A, we're looking at KHJ. So let's highlight this. So we're doing KHJ. Okay, so if we are looking at this, here is where J is considered 0. So if I'm going, why is that doing a straight line? To K, I want to read the inside of my protractor. Notice that the inside are the smaller numbers where I'm looking here. So I'm at 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then I'm right in the middle of 50 and 60, so it's going to be 55 degrees. So we've indicated the measure of the angle. Now we need to classify the angle. If KHJ is 55 degrees, it is going to be an acute angle because it is between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay, next one is GHK. So let's use our highlighter. GHK. Okay, so now we want to start on, let me get my here because 0 is here, then we're going 10, 20, 30. So we're looking at the outer ring now because we're starting at G. So we're going all the way to K, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, and we're right in the middle of 120 and 130. So we will say 125 degrees. And if it's 125 degrees, let's classify the type of angle. It would be obtuse because it is between 90 and 180 degrees. All right, so let's erase those markings so we don't get confused. Next one is GHJ. So GHJ. Notice this is a straight line. If we go back to our definitions, we talked about straight angles and we used this red line in the diagram as our example. So that is an angle that is exactly 180 degrees, and GHJ is an example of those. So GHJ is going to be 180 degrees, and it is a straight angle. Okay. And our last one here, we have GHL. Okay, so we want to start on the outside because this is our 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So GHL is a 90 degree angle. And an angle that is 90 degrees is considered a right angle. All right, that is it for concept 4A. Go ahead and go to the next video when you need concept 4B notes.